we actually like each other, so we'll bring them a wee bit closer. Well, good evening, everybody. Are you excited to be here? Yes. Well, we're excited to be here. Either that or slightly nervous. We'll work out which is which. But you know what? It's going to be a bit relaxed. We're going to hopefully be able to have a little bit of banter with each other, allow you to join in the mix of it all. We kind of prepared, okay? We sort of worked through what we were going to do, but we haven't drilled into the finer detail. And we sort of thought, look, we'll start with something simple, who we are, the sort of a few of the top headline facts, and we'll go from there. So do you want to?
Can everybody hear me? Yes? Is that good? I'm really lightly spoken. Not used to hold. Oh, there we go. Thank you. I'm really lightly spoken. That's better. Okay, so isn't it really bad when you need notes to know who you are to tell you who you are?
It's okay. Some.
I don't know. Tim was like, "Do you want to share your age?" But I'm like, absolutely fine to share that. So I was sent a few without makeup on. You might think I'm 16, but I'm actually 31. To surprise some people, I've been blessed with very good genes. If you've seen my mom and my sisters, so I've been blessed with very good genes. So we don't look our age, any of us. But yeah, I grew up with my mom and dad. So my dad is actually a Church of Ireland minister and has been he'll be coming up for 40 years in ministry. So we spent majority of the last 20 years in Jordanstown, St. Patrick's Jordanstown. So that's where he'll be retiring from. And then I am the baby of the family. Well, was the baby. I've obviously got Laura's now the baby actually. But I do have 2 older sisters. And yeah, my middle sister, she's got Jake and Ivy. So Jake is going to be 17 here and Ivy's 12. And then Laura is the baby. My work, so I really tried to narrow this down. So basically I've worked in mental health for the past 10 years. So I've worked in lots of different roles, but currently I'm in the midst of my training to be a cognitive behavioral therapist, so CBT therapist. If anybody knows, I will give if nobody's heard of that. But basically, yeah, I work in mental health. I work with people who experience symptoms of depression and lots of different anxiety disorders at the minute, and I love it. Best job. That's me.
Okay, so I'm Tim, as you know. I am 35, although sometimes I have to double check with Faith because I forget. I am a middle child, so that's slightly different. I have an older brother and a younger sister, both of which have 2 kids. My brother has 2 boys and my sister has 2 girls. And job-wise, my current role, but along the way, I have also done some landscape gardening, although at the minute we're struggling to keep plants alive at our house.
Anybody, any tips?
So I'm not quite sure what's happened there. I have done kids entertainment, so face painting, balloon modeling, bouncy castles, all that kind of carry on. I
was Disney for kids parties for a while.
Yes, Faith was Sleeping Beauty.
So we were due for a bit. We did a few together.
Done a couple of jobs together.
Yeah.
I have also worked with practice care in sort of mental health settings and learning difficulties and all that kind of stuff. So a couple of other things along the way, as well as youth work and then this role within ministry for Elim. And so that's a little bit of the headline. So we'll try and sort of peel off a little layer at a time as we go here. But we decided that we would sort of do a few questions. So this is where I said we've talked about it, but I don't know what's on Faith's list to ask me, and she doesn't know what's on my list to ask her. So this could go anywhere right now. So do you want me to start or do you want to start?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
Right, what he's going to ask me.
Do you want me to ask you questions? Or you want to ask me first?
No, I'll ask you first.
Okay, right. Let's go for it.
Okay, so I kind of thought of some questions that people normally ask Tim. One of them, somebody's asked me already, but I know probably everybody's curious. And then I've just got some random ones that I do, and some of them I might know the answer to. would be new. So the first one is, where are you from originally?
Okay, so we grew up in McGabry on the outside of the walls.
Not the prison.
Just for clarity. So McGabry went to school in Lisburn and have sort of bounced around Hillsborough, but mum and dad currently live in Maryland. So kind of local. Sister lives in Dollingstown, brother lives in Drumore. But they're just for, because people ask in terms of my name, I am, out of reference, a Drumara one. So there are Drumore ones and there are Drumara ones. I hail from the Drumara ones. And if they are related, somebody's not talking somewhere.
Well, that leads on to my second, is where does your surname come from?
Okay, so yeah, so like I say, there's two sort of main families, Drumore ones, Drumara ones, and as far as both have went back in the family tree, we're not related, but two towns so close together, I would feel to see that could be a reality. But we have sort of traced back right through to like the 1600s, heading sort of, hold on, let me get this right, east. So we're sort of back through Holland and out towards the east. So, but we haven't got to the bottom of it yet.
Good. And like, what would it be?
If I could instantly master one skill, an instrument, I'm not actually sure which one or have any preference, but my problem is the discipline to learn an instrument. I have started to learn the drums and stopped, started to learn the bagpipes and stopped, started to learn the guitar and stopped, started to learn the piano and stopped. So you can see the repeating issue here when it came to instruments. So probably an instrument.
Instrument, okay. What's something that you're currently excited about or looking forward to?
Well, there's lots of things that are happening right now between
the pressure. He's like, is there anniversaries or something coming up?
Moving church, moving house, moving sort of up sticks in life all in one go. And as much as that comes with lots of chaos, it comes with lots of excitement. So probably that's the big thing at the minute, that we're excited to be here to see what God's going to do in and through us and amongst the church. So yeah, that's it for me.
And if you could live anywhere in the world for a year, where would it be?
Colorado.
Thought so. I did know that one. I go with you. And yeah, what's your favorite part of the Sunday service?
Favorite part of a Sunday service? It's hard. Do you actually, one of the things I do, it's hard to tell if it would be my favorite, but it's one of the things that I do really enjoy, is that moment around the table when I stop speaking or Pastor Mark stops speaking or somebody else stops speaking and you hear other people begin to pray. Because what it does is it builds our heart and our faith and our worship, because it's actually, you see from the front to the back, from the youngest to the oldest, all of a sudden, hey, we're in this together. There's a unity in it that lifts everybody, and somebody else might be sitting and having a rough time. And like, I'm sure some of you have been there, you're in church and you're like, I could be anywhere else right now. And then you hear somebody pray. And I have one story of one image in particular. And I remember one lady in a church that I was at, and just as she began to pray, it just changed everything. The atmosphere changed in that moment for me. And it always brings me back to that. Just, I love to hear other people praying at the table.
Yeah. Okay. And cooking or eating out? And he does the cooking.
I like to eat out because I enjoy somebody else doing the dishes and the cooking. And
do the dishes. You cook, I do the dishes. You do help.
I do dishes too.
You do.
But that whole process, that it's simple and it's easy and it's good.
Your favorite season?
Favorite season, I would say probably fall, autumn time.
You stole that from me. It's my favorite.
That's okay. We'll get there.
Invite a friend over or go out?
Friends in the house.
So, prayer walk or quiet time journaling?
Prayer walk. Better thinking on my feet. Writing's hard work sometimes.
Yeah. And that's my 10 questions.
Okay. Right. Over to you now.
Okay.
So we'll start off with a few sort of quick fire, One or the other. No big explanation. Just go for it. Okay.
I'll try.
Right. Tea or coffee?
Oh, so it's tea in somebody's house and coffee if I'm out.
Morning person or night?
Morning.
Chocolate or crisps?
Chocolate.
Stay in or go out?
Oh, go out.
Heels or trainers?
Trainers now. Heels would have been 10 years ago.
Takeaway or home cooked?
Home cooked your meals.
And
Good.
text message or phone call?
Oh, text voice message.
Oh, that
Love a
wasn't
voice
in the choice
message,
list, but
yeah.
okay. Right. And here, so we'll go a little bit more thought provoking. You can think about this. Would you rather live without your phone or without your hair straighteners?
Without my hair straighteners.
Okay.
I do curlers. Fine.
We'll change it then. Without your phone or without your curlers?
Curlers. Yeah, without the curlers would be fine.
Okay. What is your go-to or pleasure food?
Go to your pleasure food.
Like what if you could?
Chili
that's the one.
sensations.
Chili sensations. Let's see. You've sort of, one of the questions here was favorite season, but you jumped in on that.
Yeah, autumn definitely.
Why?
Oh, I love autumn because it's just that perfect temperature that you can have just a light coat, kind of there in summer. It's when we met around September, and you just love the changing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you anything that you funny or memorable from when we first met?
Funny or memorable? Let me think. Oh, memorable probably. Because it was around the time that I was, and you didn't know, Tim didn't know at this stage that I was doing the princess parties, and you'd only met me. It was that day that you'd met me, and we were out with the two other girls in the office, and we were just walking past this antique shop, and Tim turns around and goes, "There's a throne for you, princess." They just do.
It only took half an hour to work it out. Okay. Let's see. What's one way God has surprised you?
God surprised me. I feel like this is going to be later.
Okay,
I want to come back to that telling part of.
Okay. Well, then we'll leave it there, and we'll try and go a little bit deeper then, and begin really, I suppose, to unpack that journey of life and what that has looked like for us. So, Faith, do you want to start off maybe and tell us about life growing up, what that looked like, and sort of that early days of your journey?
Yeah, so as I said, I had my dad, who was the Church of Ireland minister. Feel like, growing up, loved going. So back then it was really hard. So my mum's family and dad's family, they were all still down south. My dad's from Cork, mum's from Dublin. So we didn't really they moved up, and there wasn't really the family or the support. So we really looked to the church as our family to look after and for childcare. But Dad at many's time would pick me up from school and actually brought me to somebody's house because he needed to go see somebody. We needed to visit somebody that was unwell in hospital or in their houses. So I would have came with, and I actually did love going with him and sitting, and the amount of times he said, and people would have talked about the joy that I brought being a young child, going with him and just bringing that bit of joy and just that innocence of a child, and being there. So I had that pleasure of that as well. And there was definitely times where I felt growing up as well, and this is part of mine, that I just felt a lot of maybe expectations and pressure from things from growing up, and I didn't really realize until I was older sort of the impact of that. There was so many highs with being with my dad and journeying through and being there with people and in his job, but there was a lot of, and probably it was just my own, really, the expectations and pressures I put on that I thought other people thought of me or expected of me growing up. But Yeah, and that's me, probably right up. So we did have a church move. So we were at Carmoney, and then we moved to Jordanstown when I was about 8 or so. And obviously at that time I had a really good friend group. So it was quite hard when I did have the move and making new friends and I ended up going to a Methodist youth club with some of my best friends. And that was just amazing. The youth fellowship there and the girls' brigade there. And I really just felt like home there with them. And yeah, just to say, a fantastic youth leader. He was just there for us for everything and took us on amazing youth weekend every autumn, and that was Autumn Soul. So that might be part of the reason I love autumn. But yeah, so that's my early part. I don't want to give too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, I'll show you a picture. This is the first one.
You just wanted to show this.
I did.
See how cute he was.
Look, wasn't I a cute little kid? And now, when Faith says that Alora takes totally after her, you can see there's at least a little bit of me in there somewhere, you know. It's good. And I was blonde like that for quite a while. It sort of changed as I got older, and now it is going grey. I'm 35 and it's going grey. What's that about? But yeah, so for me, I grew up in a Christian home. So mum and dad went to church. I don't remember it at that stage, but we were at Hillsborough Elim. We moved to Dromore, and we were at Dromore for quite a number of years. And then through primary school, mum, her health started to deteriorate. Dad, he was working overseas at the time, particularly towards the last couple of years of primary school. And that was a sort of a difficult time for us. There was lots going on. And in the midst of that, we sort of had to move churches because Dad wasn't there to take us. Mum wasn't maybe always well enough to take us. But we had good family friends that brought us to church with them. So we went to Mays Presbyterian for a while. We were in and out of the youth club and the Methodist church and the Baptist church. And we also had in fact, one of the youth leaders, and again, this is the impact of how powerful people can be in people's stories. We had a youth leader in one of those churches, used to drive from his house to our house in McGabry, pick us up, and then drive back again just so that we could get there. Because otherwise it wouldn't have happened. So things like that, really spoke to me through that actually, hey, there was people that cared about us. And so that was kind of my sort of primary school years. Into secondary school then, we ended up, Dad came home, and we were kind of out of church and trying to work out where we were going. We were sort of still going on and off to Mays Presbyterian Church, and then we drove past Hillsborough Elim, and I seen the sign for and the big tent going up for what was Hillsborough Bible Week, and I decided, hey, I wanted to go to that. So Mum dropped me off at the gate one day, and I went in and took a fancy to a girl. So went back the next night,
Not
and the night
me.
after. No, you weren't there. That's it. It's all right. But I started going to the church then, and in the midst of all that, I suppose one of the things to say is that at the age of 4, coming home from BB one night, I gave my life to Jesus. We had an incredible BB captain who was very, very faithful in just speaking into our lives about the gospel and who Jesus was. And I gave my life to Jesus at the age of 4 on the way back from BB in the back of the car. And I also did it the next 3 weeks as well, just to make sure, because at 4, 1, you're forgetful, and 2, you like that reassurance, don't you? So for 4 weeks in a row, I gave my life to Jesus. And Mum then had to have that conversation of, you don't need to keep doing this. Once you ask Jesus into your heart, he's there. And it was such a privilege to have parents that spoke into my life, into my siblings' lives, about who God was and what it was to follow him. So we were so blessed by that. I would say though, as I grew up, as I got a bit older, I was going to church. I was at Sunday school. I was in BB and all of those things. And as much as I knew God, trusted God, there was still this wee bit of disconnect to how it maybe applied to my life every day. And it wasn't until at Hillsborough Bible Week at about the age of 14 that it began to, there was this moment, and we'll come back to it in a minute, that just things began to change for me. So what about you, Faith? Where does, in your story, how does Jesus begin to enter that, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so that was probably around the age of 14. That was at Autumn Soul that I spoke about. Me and my friends, we went into sort of back room after, and I did, I wanted God in my life, in my heart. And I sort of had obviously been, through Sunday school and hearing Dad, but just very much seeing that as like, I knew that I was loved and I knew that there was a God, but I just didn't have my own relationship with him, or even understand what that looked like or what that could look like. But yes, then I suppose as I kind of journeyed through from 14 up until I was 19, 20, going off to university, and I was sort of, I think it was still, I know that I was holding on to that I have to, all these expectations and pressures, and that I have to be perfect and trying to live up to what the world wants me to be and not who God says I am. So it was really, I met my best friend, Emma, and she had been, from the moment I met her in university, and literally passing, she said, "Hey, are you getting the train?" And I said, "Yep." So from that moment on, which God had planned and planted her in our life and path, she was just praying. She got to know, and she just has an amazing, lovely way about her too. She will be so kind and gentle, but she'll challenge you and get things, get the things deep down out of you very quickly. So she did then, she was asking, always checking in with me, always asking, always questioning about things, and always praying, always telling me she was praying. So this is for about 2 years. And then it was coming into my placement year at university. And I had applied for 3 different placements, and I got a phone call from the person organising placements, said, "Faith, all 3 of those placements, they're not running anymore. You're going to have to maybe look at something else." Maybe like the day after, I got a phone call from another amazing guy who I didn't know but knew my dad. So he was working in, so it was mental health placement that I was looking for and wanting. So he worked in Yellow Ribbon suicide prevention. So he was a retired clinical psychologist, and he went to St Mark's in Portadown. So he were on the, and I remember, and this is where I speak about, and God always gives me images, and he's always in the details of everything for me. And I remember standing there with the phone, and Arthur was saying to me, "Faith, I think this just feels right. I know." And he was careful. He didn't want to say it, but he was knowing God was telling him that I was meant to come there. And at that, I was just like, okay. And I kind of felt before then, now, like knowing that now, that I was kind of going between this, my own path, and then stepping out on them. What is that person saying I need to do? And what's this person saying I need to do? And where's that person? And where's this friend? And where's this relationship? And where's that? And at that moment, I was like, okay, I'm stepping on your path, God. This is, and I can just, see. And then from that placement then, that was an adult mental health placement, and Arthur wanted us to get, but again, it was God speaking in, knew that he wanted us to get work placement with children and young people as well. So he went to the church that Tim was working at. So Tim was then the youth worker in St Mark's Portadown, so he got him to come in to speak to us. And that was when we met. And sorry, it's big, long-winded, but yes, we met, but it was just showing God's working as that in all those little details. And then he, we met, and then Emma, then at the same time, within kind of 6 months we'd met, and we're going out. Emma invited me to a women's conference. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, right, you can come up and stay with me. And I went up, and I was saying, there was like like fantastic speakers flown in from America. They had like phenomenal worship. But over that weekend, even though I was listening to that and hearing that and seeing that, God was just doing amazing work in my heart, just speaking to me, just really that personal conversation with me. And I was just feeling that I need to let all this go, all this pressure, all this expectations, all this shame, all this, that I needed to be perfect. I just needed to let it down. And I was kind of holding on, trying to hide from him that this, but I just felt he was saying, just you need to let it all down, let it go. And I did, and it just absolutely changed everything. I just opened my eyes to seeing. I remember then Emma just going through the Bible with me. I was like, I didn't know this. I didn't hear this. I didn't know. Like, just the massive opening to everything, to my heart, to my understanding, to then being able to have this really close relationship that God then did just open my eyes and give me these images, and that I know now when God is speaking to me and just is saying all the things then he did do that I know now, and then what he continued to do from that moment in my life, from that moment of being on that phone and saying, yes, I'm going to go on this. And as I actually drove in to Portadown, before I even met him, I seen St. Mark's, the spire, and I said, I feel at home. I'm at home now. And then that's where I met you.
Yeah. So for me, at 14, if we jump back again on my side then, I was at Hills Revival Week, and in the midst of one of the youth meetings, God really just spoke to me, and he said, you know about me. Yes, you've asked me into your heart, but there's more to who I am. And I really went on this journey over probably 6 months to a year of saying, okay, God, if this is who you really are, let me see that. So whether that was in church, whether it was at youth, whether it was at maybe some of the other youth groups and different things I was at, I was really seeking to go, okay, looking at other people. Where is God? These are the people that say that this is who God is, that they love him, they trust him. How do they talk about him? What does it look like? And I began really to question, not doubt God, but question how does he make a difference in my life every day? What does it actually look like to follow Jesus? And over that year, I found God just speaking to me all the time, whether and opening my Bible and reading something or from a song, and just little by little bringing me into this place where I found that without him, I just felt so totally lost, that there was so much going on in the world around us that it was like, I don't know where to begin. And so, as I said, your mum, her health wasn't great. She was using a wheelchair by this stage, maybe not every day, but she was using a wheelchair. Dad, from being away and from some of the things that he's done here, his mental health hasn't been good, and just the impact of that on me, my siblings, all being quite young, and that had its toll. My brother, his sort of coping mechanism with a lot of things was to just sort of take himself and withdraw a bit. My sister, she was just like, right, well, I'm going off to do whatever I'm going to do. And I kind of got left in this space where all the plates that needed spinning, I spun them. If there was something needed done, I just got into that. And alongside that, kind of wrestling with God and saying, okay, God, how do you step into this space for me? And when I was about, so just after sort of I turned 15, I just had this moment with God in church. There was nothing spectacular or major happening at the front. It wasn't one of the big wondrous moments, but there was just this space where I felt God say, you can trust me. That because all of these things had put me in this space where I knew he was real, but there was probably this moment of, can I trust you, because of all of the impact of these things in my life, of mum not being well, of dad not being well, of having to do things that probably I felt I shouldn't have had to do, but there was nobody else to do them. And on that journey, I just felt that God saying that he was going to use those things, that he was preparing me. And I very much can see as I look back how God has shaped me through a lot of those things and how he was faithful. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit as well, just his faithfulness in the midst of my life and what that has looked like. I remember on the sort of the few months after that, finding myself in a space saying, okay, well, God, if I can trust you and you're using this, what's the purpose in it? What is it you're using this for? And I was set for going to Stranmillis to be a primary school teacher. I had chosen my GCSEs around that. I went off to another youth camp in Germany called Teen Street. And in the midst of being in Teen Street, I had a Dutch youth worker that I have no idea his name. I have never met him since. He came up to me one of the afternoons. We were sitting, I can't even remember what it was. I think it was in the wee cafe bit. He just walked up to me. He says, hey, God says that you think you're going to teach, but you're not going to teach the way you think. And he walked away. And I was like, right, what do you do with that, Lord? And I wrestled with it, and I just felt God saying that, hey, I'm going to use you to teach in the church. And I came home and I says, okay, God, I need to test that. If that's right, I'm going to change my GCSEs. And this is at the start of 5th year. So you're already, you're 1 year in, and I went into school and I said, okay, I'm going to change my art GCSE, which I picked because I was going to be a primary school teacher, to do an RE GCSE. And the school went, no. I was like, right then, okay, Lord, that was wrong. And I just couldn't set it down. So it took till about the half-term break, at the end of October, before the school said yes. So I done my RE GCSE from half-term, so starting back in November till Easter, when you kind of finish before you do the exam. So I didn't do too bad to get a B. But I just can see how God was in it. And he was saying, hey, are you willing to trust me, even if somebody else says no? And so that was kind of the beginning, really, of this journey of trust and dependence on God. Yes, I had believed in him and given my life to him at 4. I had sort of began to take that on for myself at 14. At 14, it wasn't just about going to church. There was something personal in it. But at sort of 16, God really began to say, hey, will you trust me, even when it doesn't always make sense? And for me, that journey continued well into when I was went to Bible college, and even that, getting into Bible college, didn't get the grades. So I had applied to Bible college through Queen's, and you needed 3 Bs. I didn't get 3 Bs, and you go on to check, where your grades and whether you get your your conditional offer or unconditional offer and all that kind of stuff, and it just said pending. It's like, pending what? I didn't get the grades. And this went on for like a week and a half, and clearing had opened, and I'm going like, I really need to know what's happening to work out what plan B is, because this hasn't worked. And then I got a phone call to say, hey, Belfast Bible College, somebody there has phoned our office and said, hey, we want this guy to come, so we're going to give you the place anyway. I was like, okay, God, it's good. And one of the other things then that happened, and then we'll jump back with you, I was at uni. After second year, you do international placement. I fly to Colorado, which is part of why I would go back. Fly to Colorado. I'm there for 3 months. About a month into being there, I got a phone call to say, Mum's really not well. In fact, she's been taken into Craigavon to the Bluestone unit, and things were not okay. And I'm kind of going, I have a plane ticket that flies in 2 months' time. I'm stuck on the other side of the world, and I'm the one, remember, that spins the plates. And I'm going, God, what on earth are you doing? And I actually found myself on top of a mountain called Horsetooth Rock that overlooks the whole city. And you can see the planes just going off into the distance for hundreds of miles. And you can see all the big, massive 14,000 peaker mountains in behind you. And I actually shouted at the top of my lungs at God. And really couldn't understand. And I said, God, you told me to trust you. And I can't do anything right now. And I remember in that moment, I shouted until I could shout and scream and rant and give off no more. And when I eventually sat down, then God spoke. And what he said to me was, see the stars in the sky? Now, bearing in mind, this is middle of the day. And I just had this picture of all the stars in the sky. And there's this kind of like a shooting star shot out across the sky in front of me. And he just said, I have your life in my hands. All the possibilities, all the things, if you trust me, I'll take you to where I need you to be. And after all the shouting and all the raving and all the rest, I came back to those same simple little things that God is faithful. I can trust him. And I said, okay. I was there for another 2 months. Mum was in and out of Bluestone for a number of years afterwards. Things, like I said, have not always been easy. And yet I can go, hey, I can see the faithfulness of God. Not always in the moment. Sometimes it takes to stop and to look back. Sometimes it takes to stop and try and step back. But God has been so faithful from those moments that I said, hey, I'll trust you. Faith for you, just as probably we draw to a close in this, I suppose, the latter few years then, and from those moments of God, I met with you, he'd met with me. What's that looked like since for you?
Yeah, well, I think in that midst of obviously meeting you, I had as well, which I didn't quite share, but in that midst of the expectations and the pressure and everything that I felt and not feeling worthy or not feeling good enough, I remember saying that to you in the early months, I'm not good enough for you. Of saying that. And then that was obviously when God was doing, John, I am good enough, and that he loves me unconditionally, that unconditionally part. And through you, I said and will always say that I know you're somebody who loves me unconditionally. And the first time I felt that, of being unconditionally loved. Try not to get emotional here, but oh yeah, and then just I suppose following on then when we are sort of getting engaged and that you proposed in the church, mum and dad got married in, absolutely unbeknown to me. I was like, why is this church open? Tim, there must be something on. We can't go in here.
And I was like, it's okay. I phoned the guy, hey, we're coming, open the door. But it'll be all right, sure. If there's something on, we can just slip out again. It'll be okay.
But you knew how important that was to me, and that my mum and dad's wedding album was my favourite album to look at, and that we got married. And Emma, so Emma that was there all along, who had prayed for me for years, she was then starting up her photography business, and she was snapping in the background.
Oh, at the engagement.
Yeah, so at the engagement, and then she ended up being our wedding photographer. So this is one of the photos, and you see the tight grasp that I'm like, you're mine, not letting you go. There. And then she's ended up as well then, I suppose I don't want to get too far, but she was there for, you'll see another bit later is Laura. When Laura was born, she came and took photographs. She was on maternity herself, and I was like, Emma, you're absolutely not, and she came down with baby in tow as well to take the photos, because she could not be there for us, to be part of our story and our journey. Where have I lost?
So do you want to talk about pregnancy?
Yes,
and
that's
that
where
space?
that's where I've lost. But yes, in my pregnancy with Laura, I just had absolutely, I would say, in that beginning all the way through, it was just felt so easy, and the joy I felt in the pregnancy, and people were always telling me, oh, you look lovely and you're glowing and everything, felt it was just amazing. And then around 32 weeks, my midwife was concerned. She said, Faith, you're measuring a bit bigger than you should be. I'm feeling sort of, they were looking at that stage for where Laura's head was. And she's like, I'm feeling something down here, but I'm feeling something up here as well. I want to send you for a scan, so for a growth and positioning scan. So she did send me, and the consultant got me up, and Tim was with me. And he sort of asked me, did you have any problems or anything? And we were like, no, never had any issues. No, it's never been any problem. And then he informed us that I had a cyst around my ovary. I was very hard at the time. They couldn't quite tell what the size was or how big it was. Yeah, the size, how big it was. But they said, right, you're now consultant led. So they also then said, just right at the end, oh, we have to check this for cancer as well. Just very, so Tim and I kind of came out of that. And I sort of will say now, I felt like I lost my voice, I lost my joy. And Tim had to very much become, I could speak with him about how I felt and what I thought, but I just couldn't when I got into those appointments or even share with anybody else. And I'd planned to keep working and keep going, and I had to come out of work because I just couldn't speak to anybody without bursting out crying. I said, I can't do my job and listen to everybody else and be that same person and be that person that other people deem me to be as well. So yeah, we kind of journeyed through going to see some consultant and registrar, and then we ended up really, both of us saying, no, we need a plan for this. So I did get booked in. The consultant then finally kind of, okay, I'll take a look. I'd seen a few registrars and they just weren't. Actually, they came in, reading my notes, going, oh, any complications, and not really looking or assessing, but we've been told by the main hospital you can't give birth naturally. So then finally we got with the consultant. We've spent 4 hours, which is absolutely unbeknown to spend that long with the consultant. And he had talked through the sort of plan, what was going to happen, and then we got booked in. But on that day, I was going to be one of the last to take, because they had to, it was a double operation. Basically, I was having this cesarean to have Laura's been born, and then to remove the cyst as well. I knew then at that stage too, they said to me they would need to remove my right ovary and my fallopian tube. Due to the cyst is sort of engulfing my ovary, and the fallopian tube was just in terms of future precautions. But yeah, right at when I was about to go in, and everybody came round and kind of talked through what was going to happen and what their role was, and then our surgeon changed, and Tim and I let you speak.
It's like the moment where you're going, this is really convenient timing. That the person that's made the plan is no longer here.
Yeah. So at that, and Tim and I were like, no, this is not. We've spoke with, and there was lots of different things that we had already discussed. A few complications that I had that we needed to talk through. I keloid scar, so it needed the surgeon. He had his wife a keloid scar experience, so he knew what he was going to be doing. And then yeah, the surgeon changed, so he said, no, please go down and get this surgeon, we need him. But at that moment, when in the waiting of that, and Tim and I and me saying to him, you know, what are we going to do? And the panic and the fear and the anxiety and everything came.
This wee head popped around the curtain.
And it was a lovely woman who was the chaplaincy in the hospital. And she actually found out after that she went to Lurgan Elim. Yep. And she just prayed with us, and the peace that I just felt then, I just knew, you know, God has this. And then ended up, my surgeon came up that wanted and came and did the surgery. But just in terms of, they had me prepped for everything. So I had a spinal, but they had me prepped for an epidural, for anesthesia. They had Tim prepped that he was, when Laura was born, to get out of the surgery, because they didn't know what they were going in for. They couldn't assess properly what they were going in for. But they were able to move. It just went. They couldn't believe how well the surgery. And then after, in terms of the nurses coming and the midwives coming to kind of look and look at my scar and looking at it, they just couldn't believe the healing. They couldn't believe that I didn't have an infection or that how well it had healed in it, and that Laura, in the midst of all this, was completely untouched the whole way through.
And I remember what weight was Laura?
Yeah,
She was,
Laura was 6'15",
and the cyst was
and the
4
cyst was
pounds.
4 pounds 4 and size 24 centimeters. So he was essentially carrying like twin weight the whole time.
But so God has been good and faithful in those journeys and through those things. Is there anything else you want to add, or is there anything else you would say before I finish mine?
Yeah, I just feel like there's just every day, there's so many. I think there's just sometimes actually in those when you don't even, like one of the moments I remember, and again, I was sort of carrying things and literally on my lunch break at the microwave, heating up my lunch, and God just got me to, he just placed in my heart, I sought the Lord, I can't sing, sorry. I sought the Lord and he heard and he answered. So I was like, I need to play this. So I had to play it on, and he just had me down, surrender on my knees on my lunch break, just surrendering over. And it's just all those moments. And I suppose the other one to share as well, it's maybe Tim's actually was pointed towards as well, with that too, another. So I always knew my mum was adopted. So I always knew that adoption was something, and when I met Tim, I shared with Tim, adoption's always been, I feel, on my heart. And now I know God placed that on my heart for adoption, and just sort of following the pregnancy, and not that, not that there's major things with that, but just, we both felt, both felt, you were saying as well, Tim's auntie, she'd been a foster parent, and you were like, yeah, that's definitely something that we want to look at. But yeah, October last year, God, again, I was just watching a video of an American couple, a Christian couple in America, and they had just adopted, and God just spoke now. And I thought it was going to be maybe way down later down the line that we're gonna, and God said now. So we're actually in the process of adopting.
Getting registered and everything else for it.
Yeah, so it's a very long, I don't know if anybody has experience or is aware, but it's quite a long process, but we just know God's been in it, and there's been timelines and things just removed that were there, so we just know he's in it.
Yeah. And I suppose just for me, the journey that from being in America to coming home, just I can see time and time again just that faithfulness of God, how he's been in those moments where he's led us and challenged us and been in the midst of it with, for example, like Laura, that lady appearing at that moment. She could have came at any point in the day or not at all, but the fact that she showed up in that moment when we are sitting going, what do we do now? And God brought somebody into our story that just helped us pause and remember, hey, there's somebody on the throne that you can trust. And I have seen that time and time again. I ended up in Portadown because somebody that I know that loves the Lord showed up and said, hey, I think this is something you should look at. If I hadn't went, I wouldn't have met Faith. And just time and time again, those little moments where God has spoke to us through somebody or through a situation or through a circumstance by way of reminder and saying, hey, I am here and you can trust me. I'm in the midst of this. And I suppose as we close, I want to share just for a minute or two, just a couple of thoughts very, very quickly that kind of continue to work that out. In that for us, our whole journeys have been that faithfulness of God. It hasn't been always what seemed like big dramatic things. It has been just that gentle faithfulness time and time again. And that's the God that I've come to know and to see. And just this idea that God, this Jesus that we worship, he's closer than you think. In our story, he was always there working and journeying with us, even at the times that we couldn't see it. And maybe tonight you're here and you're in those moments where you're carrying pain or hurt, maybe like Faith and some of the things that she carried for many, many years. Maybe for me, in those frustrations and the anger, maybe of why is my mum and dad sick, or what's going on here? And yet, what we see is that pain doesn't have the last word. It doesn't have the final word because of Jesus. In Luke 24, verse 5 and 6, we read that the women, this is the story of the pastor preached from this morning, just in the Gospel of Luke, that the women have went to the tomb, and Jesus, he had died on the cross on Friday. It's now Sunday, and they get there, and there's a lot of confusion and pain. They don't know what's happened to his body, and this is what happens. It says that, so the women were terrified and bowed down to the ground. Why are you looking for the living among the dead? The men asked. He is not here, but he is risen. Remember how he spoke to you when he was still in Galilee. And in this moment of pain and grief, there's this moment where the angels come along and say, hey, why are you so heartbroken right now? There is a God that you can trust, a God that has spoken to you, and you can trust his word. And that has been our story. Hey, life hasn't always been easy, but God, when he's spoken, we've been able to trust his word, that because of that moment of Jesus' death and resurrection, everything is changed, everything is different. And for each of us in this place, maybe you're here and you're carrying that pain. Maybe you're in a space where you've got questions that you don't understand, like me on the mountain shouting and screaming and saying, God, where are you? Why is this happening? But know this, there's a Jesus who loves you, who died for you. And in the midst of whatever you're carrying, whatever you're going through, he's saying, hey, you can trust me. I'm here. I'm alive. Second thing is that God shows up in those messy moments. He shows up in those moments when we're broken and doubting, and we're sitting in the hospital bedrooms going, what now? You look at the story of Mary Magdalene, just as it's just so overwhelmed with sorrow in that moment of where is the body of Jesus, and yet she's met in this moment to say, hey, he's alive, it's okay. For Peter denies Jesus 3 times, and yet when Jesus meets him on the shore of Galilee, he does so with grace and forgiveness, and he invites him to come and have breakfast and to be restored. For Thomas, he gets a bad rap for being doubting Thomas, but Jesus comes along and he shows him his hands. He says, hey, put your hand in my side where the spear was, and see, because he knows who we are and what we need. For the 2 disciples on the way to Emmaus, they're walking along, and what I love is that they're fighting. It says in Luke chapter 24:15, and while they were discussing and arguing, Jesus himself came near and began to walk along with them. Like, I love that about Jesus, that in whatever we're going through, the moments of question, the moments of pain or doubt or frustration, or when we don't understand, or we're saying, God, how can this be? Jesus shows up and he walks with us. He says, I'm here. You can depend on me. And finally, I said he's calling us. See, Jesus said in John chapter 11, verse 25, he says, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me, even if he dies, will live. You see, this Jesus, he came that we could have life. And we read in Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, that behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice, opens the door, I will come into him, and eat with him, and he with me. You see, Jesus, he comes to give us this invitation to say, hey, I'll walk with you, I'll do life with you. And that has been Faith and I's journey. That has been our story, that Jesus faithfully just showed up every single day. And there was days that we didn't reciprocate. There was days when we get caught up in the stuff that was happening in our lives, and Jesus still showed up. So he said, hey, Tim, I'm here. Hey, Faith, you can trust me. Because that's who he is. He's the God who calls our name, and he's calling you tonight. If you don't know him, Can I ask you, what will it take? What will it take for you to say, you know what, I will open my life to someone who promises faithfully to walk with me? Romans 5 verse 8 says, but God proves his love for us, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. See, the Jesus that faithfully showed up for me, that faithfully showed up for Faith, all that he asks is that you would open your heart to him, that you would accept that invitation. And the beauty is he offers it to you while you still had no thought for him. And I think it's amazing that even before we would begin to say, okay, maybe, he's already said, hey, I'm here. I've already went to the cross for you. I'm just waiting for you to say, take my hand. Let's go. So can I encourage you in this way that tonight, if you're here, you don't know Jesus, what have you got to lose? This is the God who loved you, to create you, to die for you. He calls your name and he says, hey, will you do it with me? Will you walk through life with me? For Faith and I, that journey, like I said, it hasn't always been sunny days. Some days there's been rain. Some days there's been valley. Some days there's been mountaintops. Some days there's been celebrations and great joy. But there's always been a faithful God. And he'll be faithful to you if you let him. If you simply open your heart. Can we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for our stories. We thank you that they're part of your story. The story of your love for all mankind. That you would go to the cross while we had given you no thought. That you would go and die for each of us to say, hey, I love you. And I will pay the price that is owed for you if you will simply open your life. Then you can receive this free gift. So Lord, we pray for those maybe that are here that don't know you. Would tonight be the night they would put their trust in you. That they would have heard about the faithful walk through life that you offer each of us. To take you by the hand and simply step one step after another into all that you have for us. Lord, I wouldn't be here today without your love and your faithfulness displayed at the cross and walked out every single day with me. And Lord, I thank you for that. Lord, would that inspire and encourage somebody tonight to trust you. Lord, we love you. And we simply offer you all praise and glory tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
That's your appreciation.